complete the program and do well, there'll be a job for them at the end. So that's. We also have had a lot of success with small business programs. We have so many small businesses in Nova Scotia, so what we're trying to do through small business associations, regional development authorities, is cluster those businesses together, and it really becomes a good essential skills HR capacity program. And unfortunately, of course, we do transition work. The downturn in the economy in Nova Scotia started in probably 1990 outside of Halifax, and we've had closures of a lot of fish plants, coal mines, steel mills, car plants, and of course a lot of manufacturing lately. So we're finding that an essential skills approach to that is very effective. Over to you.
Thanks, Joe. A couple of things before I forget to respond to a few specific things. One thing that is not in my slides are discussion about the costing model, but it's the same as Nova Scotia's. We pay for the instruction as well as if they're doing a needs assessment, we will pay for that. The employer pays for the site logistics, any materials that are required, as well as employee time off in some instances, either 50%, 100%, whatever you can squeeze out of them. And just to let you know that the in-kind contribution on the part of employers for those types of things can often exceed the money that the province puts in. It can be quite substantial. So anyhow, a couple of things. Workforce versus workplace distinction that somebody asked about. Workforce is a broad concept and can include the pre-employment crowd, whereas once you're talking about workplace, you're usually talking about a very specific site with a very targeted need, like Joe was showing us there with the, I think it was Elmsdale Lumber. And so when you're talking about workplace programs, they're very focused on what that employer does or what that workplace does, whereas workforce preparation can be towards a sector, it can be towards an occupation, and typically is devoid of specific workplace materials. Although you may have a host of workplace materials, it's usually not funneling into one employer, such as Elmsdale. Sometimes that happens, but that's a major distinction there. In any event, the handout that I've given you, I'm not going to do all of those slides, but I left it for you as sort of a context piece, okay? So I'm going to skip through some of this stuff. We've been doing this for as long as Nova Scotia. In Manitoba today, we have an interesting situation in that we have responsibility for adult training across 4 departments, okay? So it gets confusing at any given moment as to who is doing what. The lion's share of responsibility for industry, and where I sit, is Entrepreneurship, Training and Trade, which is a department devoted to support to industry. The post-secondaries in adult literacy are in the first one. The English as a second language crowd is in the third one. And now we have some of the LMA funding, labor market agreement funding, which has gone to family services and housing, welfare to work transition. So they're now in the training game also, okay? We have a framework which guides, if you will, essential skills / workplace literacy in the province. The framework is shared across the branches in our department and also with adult learning and literacy, okay? And I'm not going to go through this. We've got a vision, we've got the mission business. We have principles. Okay, now why was this important? Well, it was important to understand that the effort and the funding must be coordinated, yet each area needs to remain autonomous. Okay, so we have a centrally coordinated thing, which is me, and then each area adopts it into their own strategic planning and does it in their own way. Okay, we also have integrated response to a continuum of need. That means that we embed this at every opportunity that we can. And one of the things that we discovered over the years in Manitoba is the rare bird standing off to the side, called workplace literacy, is a tough sell. But if you start to attach it and embed it within other things, as well as doing it, then you begin to have a better workforce and existing worker preparation. Okay, better skills base. Objectives, very simply, we increase awareness, and that includes practitioner training. We make sure people understand where their skills are and have a plan for it, and we train. 3 things, they're motherhood statements, they don't seem to change. What else could it be? Every year we swap that out, we take the framework, and we have strategic objectives for the year, which reflect sort of diversity priorities and other things that are going on in government. But the framework exists as it is since 2004. For my side of the house, much as the same in Nova Scotia, we use the organization called Workplace Education Manitoba. They are a not-for-profit external to government. All the funding is flowed through there, both federal and provincial. They have 2 business and 2 labor representatives and 1 strategic advisor, if you will, 1 government person, that's me. They do essential skills training for existing workers and now also for job seekers, workforce. We also do human resource supports. In other words, enabling companies to include essential skills in their HR practice, recruitment, job descriptions, performance management, internal movement, as well as technical training. Okay? 2 years ago, we opened an actual training center, which creeps out across the province. Now we have them in other places, 5 other places. We have specific focus on something called Apprenticeship West, A-West, drop-in center for apprentices and trades qualifiers. We provide direct support to the apprenticeship branch. We also have a special arm which focuses on how can essential skills benefit immigrants. It is not language training. It is essential skills training as applies to immigrants. Lots of professionals coming through there. We also have our Aboriginal focus, which largely is centered under Igniting the Power Within, which translates essential skills and recognition of prior learning into a language and a framework and a perspective that First Nations and Métis can understand. Some of the lessons learned, and somebody had asked about this, we had an external evaluator do a very in-depth study on our programs, okay? And they interviewed, for the most part, employers. And this is what was said about why they want us, okay? Which I think is the crux of some of the questions here. How do you get them to buy in? How do you get these programs going? Okay, so you must be extremely knowledgeable about the workplace, about industry, about HR practice. You've got to have practitioners who know this stuff. I often will take HR experts who are now doing contract work and teach them about essential skills. Very difficult to do it the other way in terms of taking long-term retired teachers and teaching them about the workplace. So partnerships are enormously key, and Joe touched on this. Vital, enormously key. Not only with management and union must be brought to the table early and buy in and participate in a meaningful long-term way, okay? But when we go into the regions, We use the existing infrastructures. I don't want to create that rare bird standing off to the side. So every region that we practice this in is different. I look at the strengths in the region. Every region has, oh, that's the place we all go, you know, use them. If it's the chamber, if it's an adult learning center, that's what we call them in Manitoba. If it's a literacy program, what is the strength in this region? How can we increase their capacity and support them to do workforce and workplace? So, you know, when you ask me, what is it like? Oh, there's 10 major variants in Manitoba anyhow. Customize, 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 customize. To the diversity group at hand, to the workplace at hand, to the region at hand. That has been why we're still standing 25 years later, and why people are still banging down the door and lined up around the block to get the services, is that kind of partnership, okay? And believe you me, one thing that I have learned is this concept of raising awareness. It's necessary, but don't kid yourself. This is a marketing and selling job. This is a very difficult thing for literacy instructors and essential skills instructors and government people to wrap their heads around. Sell. You have to sell. You know, so I hired a guy who's a retired teacher who happens to be a good salesman. That's all he does. He sells, and he's a genius at it, and the rest of us go, oh, we don't want to sell, right? Okay. Flexibility to stay with the company over the course of its ups and downs, and it can be quite a ride, quite a ride. This is, by the way, I'm not saying this. This is what the companies are saying, okay? So there's companies that we've been with for 3 years, and we haven't done training yet. However, we have done the needs assessment work. We've developed essential skills assessments. We've profiled 14 occupations. We've included this in their recruiting process by adding behavioral interview questions about essential skills into the oral interview. We've, included it in their job descriptions, put it in place for internal promotion. 1 minute. Am I really way over? Did you sort of? Okay. Etc. In that community, this is, Joe and I talking about one, this is Hudbay Mining in northern Manitoba. And mining is very volatile. Up 1 minute, down the next, up, down, up, down. Okay, we're closing these mines, we're opening 6 more. Okay, what does that mean? This goes on all the time. And so your program and the focus on you gets put over here for the crisis of the moment. You can't go off in a huff and go, well, forget them. They're not really interested. They really are. And what's happened also in this particular region is it becomes a community economic development initiative. I call them the first essential skills community in Canada. We even have, they're right on the Saskatchewan-Manitoba border. We have people from Saskatchewan who now want to be on the committee. It's bizarre. Every time I go up there, there's more people at the meetings. We now have about 24 people at the meetings, from the superintendent of the schools to the University College of the North. The K-12 people are there. The literacy program is there. The Adult Learning Center, Employment Manitoba, who's government, the Creighton, Saskatchewan crowd, the company people, the union people. We're all together, and they all do it. Okay, they all do it. They all want it. Now we have a parents group, if you can believe that. We have a parents group going, oh, we want essential skills. Right? So this is a one company town. Let's get it into the children. Let's get the parents buying on board. Let's get it in the school. Let's get it in the post-secondary and the literacy. You know, it's amazing. It's a beautiful thing. Customize, I've talked about that. I'm almost out of time. Look, here's the key. I am out of time. Key things for business. Quality of recruits are better. Quality of existing workforce is better. Apprentices have more success, less error, more flexibility in their existing workforce. For individuals, they do actually have higher skill levels. We always forget to talk about that, but they do have a gain. They have more opportunities, not only in their workplace, but in their life. They have increased self-confidence